theory from the ground up and then test that theory would utilize a mixed methods approach. Let's take a look at an example in action. If your research aims were to understand the perspectives of war veterans regarding certain political matters, you'd likely adopt a qualitative methodology, making use of interviews to collect data and one or more qualitative analysis methods to make sense of the data. If, on the other hand, your research aims to assess the distribution of left versus right-leaning veterans per state, or compare the political leanings between vets and non-vets, you'd adopt a quantitative methodology, using numbers-based data from a survey to address your research aims. So the first and most important thing you need to consider when deciding which methodological approach to use is the nature of your research aims and research questions. Specifically, you need to assess whether your research is exploratory or confirmatory in nature, or involves a mix of both. The importance of achieving solid alignment between these three factors and your methodology can't be overstated. If they're misaligned, you're going to be forcing a square peg into a round hole. You'll be using the wrong tool for the job, and your research will become a disjointed mess. A quick tip: if your research involves a mix of both exploratory and confirmatory aims, but you have a tight word count limit, you may want to consider trimming down the scope a little and focusing on one or the other. A mono-method approach executed well has a far better chance of earning marks than a poorly executed mixed methods approach. So don't try to be a hero unless there are strong reasons to take a mixed method approach. Right, let's look at the next factor. Factor number 2, the disciplinary norms. Choosing the right approach for your research also involves looking at the approaches used by other researchers in the field and studies with similar research aims and objectives to yours. Oftentimes, within a discipline, there is a commonly accepted methodological approach, or set of approaches, used in studies. While this doesn't mean you should just follow the herd simply because, you should at least consider these approaches and evaluate their merit within your context. A major benefit of reviewing the research methodologies used by similar studies in your field is that you can often piggyback on the data collection techniques that other, more experienced researchers have developed. For example, if you're undertaking a quantitative study, you can often find tried and tested survey scales with high Cronbach's alphas. These are usually included in the appendices of journal articles, so you don't even have to contact the original authors. By using these scales, you'll save a lot of time and ensure that your study stands on the proverbial shoulders of giants by using high-quality measurement instruments. Of course, when reviewing existing literature, keep point number 1 front of mind. In other words, your methodology needs to align with your research aims and research questions. Don't fall into the trap of adopting the methodological norm of other studies just because it's popular. All right, now let's look at the last factor. Factor number 3, practicalities. When choosing a research methodology, there will always be a tension between doing what's theoretically best, in other words, the most scientifically rigorous research design, and doing what's practical given your constraints. This is the nature of research, and there are always trade-offs, as with anything else. But what constraints, you ask? Well, there are a few. When you evaluate your methodological options, you'll need to consider the following constraints and ask yourself some important questions. Number 1, data access. What data will you need to access to pull off your analysis? And how likely is it that you'll get this access? Also, are there any ethical clearance requirements you'll need from your university? Number 2, time. How much time will you need to undertake interviews or focus groups, in the case of qualitative, or collect a sufficient number of survey responses, in the quantitative, or both? If you're wanting to undertake longitudinal research, What sort of timeline will you need? And will your university allow this? Number 3, money. What financial resources will you need to execute your research design? Will you need to spend money on participation incentives, travel costs, snacks and drinks, meeting facilities, or other services? Number 4, equipment and software. What equipment might you need for collecting data? For example, lab equipment or recording equipment. What software will you need to analyze the data, and how will you get access to this? And lastly, number 5, your knowledge and skills. What is your current level of competence and experience in terms of the data collection and analysis methods you plan to use? And what will you still need to learn? How long will this take? And how confident are you in your ability to acquire the necessary skills? What will your backup plan be if you can't develop the necessary skills? As you can see, there is a wide range of practicalities and constraints that you need to think about when you're deciding on your research design and methodology. As I mentioned, these practicalities create a tension between the ideal methodology and the methodology that you can realistically pull off. This is perfectly normal, and it's your job to find the option that presents the best set of trade-offs. If you carefully consider these 3 factors and design your methodology in a way that strikes a good balance between research rigor and practicality or viability, you'll be headed in a good direction. Remember, you can learn more about the various research design choices, including data collection and analysis methods, over on the Grad Coach blog at gradcoach.com/blog. All right, so that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and leave a comment if you have any questions. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Grad Coach channel for more research-related content. If you need a helping hand with your research, remember to check out our private coaching service, where we work with you on a one-on-one basis, chapter by chapter, to help you craft a winning dissertation or thesis. If that sounds interesting to you, book a free consultation with a friendly coach at gradcoach.com. That's all for this episode of Grad Coach TV. Until next time, good luck.